so you just have to bear with me on that. As the crowd grew, we used to start hanging over at Sidewalk Cafe, because through the 80s, the place got civilized, more and more restaurants were opening, more and more bars were opening. Sidewalk Cafe became the hangout. There's a lot of friends here who used to come and hang out there with me. It got pretty rowdy, pretty drunk, and a lot of events were inspired from there. Going into Central Park and racing, you know, going laps of the island, completely drunk, completely stoned, just really fucked up. Don't know how any of us survived that. It was a very, very crazy time. Late 80s, the whole club scene in New York had really grown to these giant mega clubs. 14th Street, there was a place called Palladium. Down on Hudson Street by the Holland Tunnel, there's a place called Area, and these clubs were phenomenal. I mean, they could hold hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of people. They had giant events, and if you knew the right people, you could get in. So between wives, my girlfriend was this girl, Sally Rando, and she was the door person at the Palladium. My partner, Demi's wife's girlfriend, strangely enough, Pilar Mosner, was the door person at Area. So we could ride right up on the bikes, right up on the crowd that's outside the place. They would just part the seas, we'd leave the fucking motorcycles right at the door, walk right in, much to the annoyance of everybody else, have a good time in the club, and leave again. So a lot of drunken nights, a lot of riding. One night we were down in Vazax at 7B. I don't know if anybody's been there. There's a horseshoe bar, still there. I was in there with Demi. We're getting good and loaded. It must have been about 3:30, 4 in the morning. So we said, okay, let's go to Central Park. We'll go for a race. And Beeza Bob overheard us. He was sitting on a stool, and this guy's got a broken leg and a crutch. And it's like, really? You want to come? It's like, we were trying to sneak out of here to get away from you, and you want to come? And then Jim Jarvis is sitting next to him, and he's got his boy, he had a Triton. So he's like, oh, I want to come too. Let's go racing at Central Park. So, okay, we're all drunk. We get on the bike, shoot up 6th Avenue, right into the park. Demi's first, I'm second. Jim Jarvis is third. And Bob on his Beeza with a crutches and a cast on his leg, he's last. So we do turn 1, turn 2, turn 3. I don't know if any of you guys ever rode in Central Park, because a lot of those roads are all closed down now. But back in the day, you could do a loop, and even though there was red lights everywhere, you could see, because it was all incoming traffic, and every light you could see if there was a car coming. So 100 miles an hour the whole way around, non-stop, forget the lights, absolutely scratching till you fall off the bike pretty much. Anyway, we get to about turn 4 going through there, and Demi runs out of gas, so I'll pull over. Like, this is good. So we're looking around in the dirt to find a can. We're going to siphon some gas, get them going again. This Con Ed truck comes out and goes, hey, one of you guys lost your helmet. It's on the road back there. Like, no, it didn't. I was like, where's Bob? Okay, so we're running back around the corner. Well, Bob was trying to go faster than us to catch up with us, and he went off the road, and the Jersey barriers in the park, if anybody notices, the wooden sticks are on the traffic side instead of the barrier being on the traffic side. So his broken leg hit the first stick, snapped his leg, threw him right over the fence, head first in a fucking tree. Well, that killed him just about right there and then. So, no cell phones in these days. It took a long time to get somebody. Finally, a cop car came around. They called an ambulance. They threw him in the ambulance. They were going to take him down here at Beth Israel. And on the way down, we were following on the bike. So on the way down, he died in the ambulance. They took him into a New York hospital where they do brain stuff. And they revived him. It was amazing. It was quite a task. We weren't allowed to see him because he was pretty fucked up. So the next morning we went out to the hospital and got in to see him. And the guy was unrecognizable. His head was as wide as his shoulders. He had a scar right across here like this. Like, they opened his whole head up. They put a huge fucking steel plate in his head. He had snapped his leg. And because he was wearing a cast and his cast was open, he lost a whole bunch of toes. I mean, it really fucking hurt. And the guy was in bad shape there. So that was the last night we ever raced in Central Park. And we really started thinking twice about drinking and riding and doing drugs and riding and all the rest of it. And it was a really sobering event. A lot of guys here don't know about that. And Bob, to this day, is alive and well. He's down in New Orleans. He's got one leg about an inch shorter than the other one. And he's a pretty good dude. Okay. So, on sobering up and getting married to Pat and starting a family and stuff, the motorcycle shop had to start taking a different direction. I had to get serious with it. So, from being just in the basement, we moved upstairs. There was a bunch of people living there. We kicked them all out, got the whole floor, and started doing retail. We started selling jackets, started selling helmets, started parts bins, and we had every cable for every fucking British bike that you could ever have hanging up, and just stupid shit everywhere in the shop. People noticed, they'd come by and get these beanies and different stuff. So the shop really started taking off in a bigger, more serious way. We were doing more work, building bikes for people, started getting hip. A couple of well-known actors would come by, get us to build our bikes, and just the scene grew and grew and grew a bit. And it got better. So to really launch the place, me and Jimmy decided, okay, we need some bikes to sell. And he borrowed $3,000 off his brother, because this guy had seen us in one of these Iron Horse magazine articles and called us up from Kansas and said, we've got this trailer, it's full of motorcycles, you really got to come here and buy all of these motorbikes, and we get everything you need, it's going to be great. So we're like, sounds good. So we got $3,000 together. We had a Cadillac ambulance at the time that was all gutted, and we jumped in a car. We had an extra gas tank in the back that pumped gas into the right tank, so when you were going to empty, you'd flick a switch and the gas would pump down, and you could just keep going and going. It had a 400-mile range. So we pretty much drove non-stop to Kansas to see this guy, and long story short, when we got there, he was some ex-Vietnam guy that had brought this wife back from Vietnam, and she looked like, I don't know if you ever saw Ren and Stimpy. when the horse is there with the rubber things on his knees and going, help me. It was awful, really awful. Needless to say, this guy had no motorcycles. He took us out to the chicken coop where he had his marijuana hidden, and he was going to smoke a joint with us. And when he walked out the door, we ran. We jumped in the Cadillac,